Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're unpacking this really fascinating text by Todd and Julia Reinhardt.
Sure.
It's titled "The Life You Want Is Not Something to Apologize For." And our mission today is to kind of completely dismantle this persistent mistake in how we think about morality.
It's a huge mistake. Yeah.
Right. The authors argue that society basically hands us this false choice. It insists that you either have to sacrifice yourself to other people, essentially becoming a martyr,
Hmm.
or the flip side, you sacrifice other people to yourself and become this, like, ruthless predator.
Yeah, it's the predator.
Anyway.
So we're going to deconstruct this concept of what they call rational self-interest and show how it fundamentally differs from just simple selfishness, and hopefully give you a framework for building a flourishing, unapologetic life.
I love that. Unapologetic. Because that false choice, the martyr or the predator, it is so deeply ingrained in us that it almost feels inescapable.
Totally.
I mean, we're taught very early on that to be good is to be selfless.
And to be selfish is to be evil. But this text, it provides a third option that completely rejects that entire dichotomy.
Which, it brings to mind how we usually evaluate these things, because usually when we look for a moral diagnosis, we expect it to look like a medical x-ray.
Well, that's a good way to put it.
Right, like you break your arm, the x-ray shows a jagged white line, and the doctor just points at it and says, there it is, broken.
Yeah.
We expect morality to be just as clean, good or bad, selfless or selfish.
It's a comforting binary.
Oh.
We really prefer our moral landscape to be visible and just neatly categorized.
Yeah.
But when you step into the philosophy of how we are actually supposed to live our day-to-day lives,
Yeah.
the X-ray machine it stops working.
It totally breaks down.
Yeah, it's an incredibly murky diagnostic landscape. And the Reinhardts argue that rational self-interest is the only way to navigate it. Their core premise is that your life is undeniably yours to live. But living it well doesn't just mean doing, whatever you want in the moment.
Right.
It requires reason, character, and this absolute respect for the equal rights of everyone else.
No.
So you don't surrender your life, but you also aren't given a permission slip to exploit the people around you.
Right. To escape that false choice of the martyr versus the predator, we really have to look closely at what the word rational actually means here, because people use the word selfish to justify all kinds of terrible behavior.
Oh, absolutely they do.
It's like running a business by only looking at today's gross revenue and just completely ignoring the supply chain.
Oh, that is such a good analogy.
Yeah, because sure, if you sell all your inventory today at a 90% discount, you bring in a massive pile of cash by 5 p.m.
Right, you feel rich.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
satisfies that immediate impulse. It feels great right in that moment. But tomorrow, your shelves are entirely empty, you have nothing to sell, and your business just collapses.
The business metaphor perfectly illustrates the mechanics of predatory selfishness, because that predatory mindset operates on this extremely short timeline.
Mm-hmm.
It essentially just asks one question. What can I get away with right now?
Right now, yeah.
It's pure, immediate acquisition without any guiding principle or thought for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Whereas rational self-interest, it operates like the supply chain management of your life.
Yeah.
It understands causality. If self-interest just meant satisfying whatever random desire popped into your head, you could call a gambling addiction self-interest.
Wow, yeah. Or recklessness.
Yeah, recklessness, betrayal, blowing your life savings on a whim,
Mm-hmm.
all of that could be justified because it provides a momentary reward.
But the rational person has to zoom out, right? They have to ask, what kind of life am I actually building?
Exactly.
They recognize that long-term values, like your physical health, your financial security, your reputation, those things take years to build and literally only seconds to destroy.
And that is exactly why reason serves as the anchor here. Rationality is a method of processing reality.
Yeah.
It dictates that you don't detonate your life tomorrow just to satisfy some random impulse today.
See, but I'm struggling to reconcile this a bit with our actual internal experiences, because our impulses, our desires, our emotions, they feel so undeniably real.
They do.
So if our feelings aren't facts, how do we actually balance the very real emotions we experience every day with this strict, uncompromising adherence to reason?
Well, the source material draws a really sharp, almost mechanical line between internal experience and external reality. It acknowledges that your emotions are real psychological data.
Okay.
You're genuinely feeling them. But it insists that an emotion is not evidence about the outside world.
Interesting.
Yeah, if you look at the mechanics of an emotional response, it's really just your brain reacting to its own evaluation of something.
Like a misinterpretation.
Exactly. You can feel intense fear regarding something completely harmless simply because you misunderstood what it was.
Hmm.
Or, you can feel a profound sense of love for a partner who has consistently lied to you and proven unworthy of your trust.
Right. So the feeling is real. You're really feeling the love or the fear. But the data processing that led to that feeling is flawed.
Precisely the point. The evaluation behind the emotion can be entirely false. And that is why reason has to be the primary method for a good life.
Okay.
The text defines reason as the process of observing facts, integrating that evidence logically, and rejecting what the authors refer to as mysticism.
And we should clarify for the listener here, they aren't just talking about religion or spirituality when they say mysticism.
No, not at all. They define mysticism much more broadly.
Hmm.
In this framework, mysticism is the act of elevating anything above evidence.
Anything above evidence.
Right. It could be elevating a comforting feeling, a political authority, or even just general societal consensus. If you believe something just because it's politically fashionable or emotionally reassuring, despite evidence to the contrary, you are practicing mysticism.
Wow.
So loyalty to reason demands the intellectual honesty to actively change your mind when external reality proves your internal feelings wrong.
That requires a massive amount of mental discipline. I mean, it's incredibly difficult to override a comforting belief just because the math doesn't add up.
Oh, it's so hard.
But embracing that strict method of reason, it doesn't seem to make life cold or robotic like people might initially fear.
No, not at all.
It actually looks like the only tool that makes a rich, multidimensional life even possible. I mean, you need that objective reasoning to choose a fulfilling career or to accurately evaluate the character of the people you let into your life or just to effectively manage your long-term health.
Because when you abandon that objective method, reality inevitably steps in to correct the error.
Reality always wins.
Always. The text makes a major point to emphasize that reality does not waive consequences just because you meant well.
Oh, man. Yeah.
You can ignore a nagging health issue, or you can spend way beyond your income, and sure, for a while, the comforting illusion holds up, but eventually, your body and basic arithmetic are going to balance the ledger.
And when you try to outrun that eventual bill, you usually end up seeking out short-term distractions, which really forces us to look at how this text separates pleasure from actual happiness.
Yes.
Because you can experience a massive amount of pleasure while actively ignoring reality. Like, you can go on a lavish vacation and feel incredible dopamine-fueled excitement while you're just quietly drowning in credit card debt back home.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Or you can numb out with video games or television every single night, finding pleasure in the escape, while the ambitions you actually care about are just slowly dying in the background.
Right.
The authors state that pleasure is highly valuable, of course, but mechanically it is not the same thing as happiness.
Because pleasure is a localized reaction, whereas happiness is a sustained condition.
Sustained condition. I like that.
Yeah, the Reinhardts define real happiness as an enduring state that comes from value-directed living. It isn't just a string of pleasurable distractions you use to hide from a collapsing life. True happiness is built through productive achievement, maintaining your independence, and living with actual purpose.
Right.
It physically changes your day-to-day choices because you are no longer just chasing the next dopamine hit. You are methodically constructing a life that aligns with your core values.
You know, that concept of building brings us to a phrase in the text that, honestly, it completely stopped me in my tracks.
So which one?
The authors claim that ambition is a moral virtue, but they take it a step further. They write, productive work makes the mind visible.
Oh, that is such a profound way to look at human labor.
Isn't it? I mean, think about the mechanics of it. A carpenter takes an abstract concept, knowledge of geometry and understanding of materials, a vision for a space, and they apply physical effort until a literal house is standing there. Or a software developer turns abstract logic into code that runs an entire business system. The text elevates everyday jobs to acts of moral virtue, provided they are built on voluntary exchange. It just reframes work. It's not a tedious obligation, but the literal translation of human thought into physical reality.
Which completely redefines the concept of prosperity.
Right.
Prosperity isn't merely accumulating money. It is the security, the intellectual growth, and the freedom that comes from that productive capacity.
Yeah.
But there's a massive caveat here that keeps this from devolving into that predatory selfishness we discussed earlier.
The means matter.
The means matter entirely. Wanting wealth or success isn't morally suspicious, but how you acquire it dictates its moral value.
So true.
Wealth generated through invention, production, and voluntary trade, that is celebrated. Wealth extracted through fraud, coercion, or, political manipulation, that is completely condemned.
Right, because a long-range thinker doesn't just evaluate the immediate payout of their actions. They calculate the compounding interest of their choices on their future, their character, their relationships,
Exactly.
which naturally challenges the stereotype of the quote-unquote selfish individual.
Right.
Because if we are completely focused on our own rational self-interest, protecting our long-range plans and our productive ambitions, does this philosophy demand that we live in total isolation?
It's a fair assumption to make.
Right, like if everyone is rigorously protecting their own interests, it sounds like a recipe for a world of solitary hermits just sitting alone on their mountains of achievement.
But the text argues the exact opposite. Human flourishing is profoundly social.
Mm.
The key difference lies in the foundation of those social dynamics. Other people bring extraordinary value into our lives, but those relationships must be entirely voluntary. People matter to you because they represent values that enhance your life, not because their mere existence imposes some moral obligation on you. The text uses this really beautiful definition. It says, love is admiration made personal.
Love is admiration made personal. I want to dig into that definition because it suggests that you love someone because of their specific traits, right? Their character, their sense of humor, their resilience.
Yes, exactly.
And because those traits matter to you, their happiness becomes crucial to your own happiness. You aren't losing your identity in them. You are expanding the borders of your own life by including them.
Right. You value them, so supporting them is really an act of supporting your own values.
But let me push back on this, though, especially on behalf of anyone listening who has cared for someone through a really severe hardship.
Okay, yeah.
If I stay up for 3 nights in a row caring for a sick spouse, or if I don't know, drain my personal savings to help my child through a medical crisis, how on earth is that not a sacrifice?
It seems like one, right?
It really does. Doesn't that directly contradict this whole idea of self-interest?
Well, this is where we have to be incredibly precise with our definitions. The text argues that caring for a sick spouse is absolutely not a sacrifice. It redefines sacrifice as the surrender of a greater value for a lesser one.
A greater value for a lesser one.
You're right. So if you love your spouse deeply, their health and well-being are massive, central values in your life. Their life is a significantly greater value to you than, say, catching up on sleep.
Oh, I see.
Therefore, giving up sleep to protect the person you love is not a sacrifice. It is a rational prioritization of your highest values.
Wow, that is a staggering paradigm shift, because a true sacrifice, under that definition, would be abandoning the spouse you deeply love so you could get a good night's sleep that you don't even really care about.
Exactly.
True sacrifice is betraying what matters most for what matters least.
Yes. When you choose the greater value, you aren't acting as a martyr. You're acting in your own rational self-interest, protecting the things that make your life worth living.
It completely removes the undercurrent of resentment that so often poisons relationships.
Oh, absolutely.
It means generosity is a wonderful thing, but only when it is a voluntary expression of your own values. It outright rejects altruism. And we mean not the act of being kind, but the strict philosophical doctrine that demands self-sacrifice as the absolute standard of a good person.
Right.
The text explicitly states, need alone is not a blank check drawn against your life. Just because someone else is struggling doesn't mean they suddenly hold the deed to your time or resources.
But if true generosity requires a voluntary choice, that puts a massive weight on our ability to actually say no.
Yeah, it really does.
And yet the moment we try to set a boundary and protect our time or energy, a new psychological trap kicks in.
Guilt.
Guilt.
Yeah.
Which forces us to examine where that guilt even comes from. If our lives belong to us, why do we feel so terrible when we assert that ownership? The text explains this by separating self-respect from self-esteem and proper guilt from counterfeit guilt.
Okay, let's break that down.
Well, individual rights establish a hard boundary. It's summarized as, do not live as a sacrifice and do not seek sacrifices, meaning no one can initiate coercion against you and you cannot initiate it against them.
So what are the mechanics of how we evaluate ourselves within those boundaries?
Well, self-respect is the moral judgment that you have acted with integrity. It's the knowledge that you didn't betray your principles when things got difficult.
Right.
Self-esteem, on the other hand, is the earned conviction that you are fundamentally competent to navigate reality and worthy of experiencing happiness. You construct self-esteem every time you face a difficult fact honestly, and you erode it every time you evade reality.
And when we fail to act with integrity, we experience proper guilt, which proper guilt is actually highly useful. If I lie to a colleague or break a meaningful promise, I should feel a sense of guilt. It functions as an internal alarm bell, alerting me to a failure in my own moral system so I can correct my behavior. But counterfeit guilt operates entirely differently.
Yeah, counterfeit guilt is described as one of the most effective instruments of control ever devised.
Ever devised. Wow.
Yeah, it is not an alarm bell for a moral failing. It is a mechanism designed by others to manipulate your actions.
Think about the everyday reality of modern life, especially with the pressures of, burnout culture and the gig economy.
Oh, yeah.
How often do people apologize simply for taking up space or for achieving a level of success?
All the time.
We're constantly pressured to feel guilty for our ambition, for our independence, and especially for our personal boundaries. If you build a successful business, there's this societal narrative that you should feel guilty for those who haven't. Or if you decline an invitation to a family event because you are just exhausted and need to rest, you are immediately labeled as selfish.
And we have to ask who benefits when you experience that false guilt. Right. If someone can successfully convince you that your competence or your strengths somehow create an automatic debt to those around you, they don't even have to force you to comply.
You do it yourself.
Exactly. You will start policing yourself on their behalf. You will begin apologizing in situations where no apology is warranted at all. Rejecting counterfeit guilt is a prerequisite for a flourishing life. A feeling of guilt does not constitute proof of an actual moral crime.
Taking these high-level philosophical paradigms and translating them into practical tools is really the core mission of this show.
Absolutely.
So, as we do in every deep dive, we have each selected a highlight from the text and developed a strategy for the listener to implement today. I will start with my highlight, which goes back to that redefinition of sacrifice versus rational prioritization.
Oh, I love that part.
Yeah, it resonated with me because it instantly dissolves the victimhood we often feel when doing hard things. So my implementation strategy is a vocabulary audit.
Okay, walk us through how a vocabulary audit functions in practice.
So the next time you feel like you are sacrificing something, say you decide to skip a fun Friday night out to stay home and code a new project for your startup, or you spend a sweltering Saturday helping your best friend move apartments. Instead of sighing and internalizing the thought, oh, I am sacrificing my weekend, I want you to physically say out loud, I am not sacrificing my time. I am rationally prioritizing a greater value.
Wow. That immediately shifts the entire psychological framing.
It fundamentally changes your role in the narrative. You transition from being a martyr at the mercy of external demands to being a conscious, empowered agent choosing what matters most.
Yes.
Your long-term business goals matter more than a few drinks at a bar. The well-being of your best friend matters more than a lazy afternoon on the couch. You are actively choosing your values, not losing them.
I love that.
So what highlight did you choose?
I focused on the concept of treating emotions as real psychological data, rather than evidence about external reality, specifically regarding counterfeit guilt.
Oh, that's a good one.
It is dangerously easy to be manipulated by an unearned feeling that you've done something wrong. So my strategy is what I call the emotions evidence test.
Okay, how does the listener apply that when the guilt hits?
It requires a moment of deliberate pause. When you set a firm boundary, like saying no to taking on an extra unpaid project at work or declining a draining social obligation, and you inevitably feel that wave of guilt wash over you, stop.
Just stop.
Do not immediately backpedal and agree to do the thing. Put the feeling through the emotions evidence test by asking yourself one objective question. Did I violate one of my own moral principles? Did I lie, cheat, steal, or break a promise?
And if the answer is objectively no?
Then the guilt is entirely counterfeit. You committed no moral failure. You are simply experiencing a psychological reaction, likely a remnant of deep social conditioning that trained you to prioritize everyone else's comfort over your own life.
Wow.
Treat the guilt as data. Acknowledge that you are feeling it, but do not treat it as a mandate to change your behavior. Let the physiological feeling pass and maintain your boundary.
Treat it as data, not a mandate. That perfectly crystallizes the ultimate message of the Reinhardt text. Your life is not a debt that you are required to pay off to society or your neighbors or your family.
No, it's not.
You don't have to become a predator to take your own life seriously. And you certainly don't have to become a martyr to be considered a good person.
Mhm.
Use your rational mind. Produce tangible values. Protect your physical and mental health. Choose people who are genuinely worthy of your love. And give generously when it actively serves the values you hold dear. It is a moral framework built entirely around the possibilities of human life.
It is a very empowering framework, but it's critical to note that it does not promise a utopia.
That is a crucial distinction.
The final paragraphs of the text are remarkably stark. They make it explicitly clear that even if you live a perfectly rationally self-interested life, you will still encounter pain, loss, illness, failure, and grief.
Yeah.
Rationality offers no fantasy realm where reality stops being difficult or tragic, which leaves us with a final, somewhat heavy thought to mull over.
What is the question we are leaving the listener with today?
Think back to the very beginning of this conversation. The clean binary of the martyr and the predator, and the comforting illusions of mysticism that whisper to us that, everything happens for a grand reason, or that our suffering will be magically rewarded in the end.
Right.
If we completely abandon those illusions, if we stop viewing ourselves as either noble martyrs destined for reward or ruthless predators conquering the world, how does our experience of inevitable, unavoidable tragedy change when all we have left is cold, hard reality and our own reason to lean on?
Man, that strips away a lot of psychological armor. When the x-ray is murky and the comforting stories are gone, how do we process grief using only the evidence in front of us? That is a profound question to explore long after this deep dive ends. Until next time.